So here's a passion of mine. I'll give you a little background. When I was coaching, I learned the hard way in my early years as an offensive coordinator and a head coach. Had a 4 turnover game, and studying film, my quarterback threw into double coverage on each of them. So I immediately said, heck, I got to apologize to the quarterback because I clearly didn't train him well enough on decision making. And there's only 11 dudes on defense, so we ought to be able to be smart enough. If I was raised in the era where we did flashcards in math class in elementary school, so I was said, heck, I ought to be able to get my quarterback to understand if there's only 11 dudes out there to make sure we never throw in double coverage. So, anyways, I'm a big believer in systems, giving quarterback systems to help decision making, improve their decision making. And I also have heard, and I'll ask you guys, you coaches, the question is, I've had this debate and I've heard it discussed many times, is there's a camp out there that believes that we're just kind of born with the ability to think and process information, and whatever speed that is kind of like your eye color and your height, you're going to be stuck with it. And there are others like myself that believe it can easily be trained. And I call cognitive speed as the ability to think quickly. Just like improving your ability to throw the ball faster at a higher rate of speed and or run faster, I believe we can train quarterbacks to do this. I think where we've maybe a little behind as coaches is we haven't put together easy to understand systems that allow quarterbacks to do this. So that's what this presentation is going to be about, and that's what I've built 2 cognitive speed training systems. One is pre-snap and the other is post-snap. And what I'm going to do today is we're going to take a look at the pre-snap. And I also use was the play calling criteria that I used in my career in calling plays. It's something I kind of stumbled into, as I shared with you after the story of the 4 interception game. I felt, I just looked in the mirror and said, as a coach, I got to do better. It's not my player's fault if he throws 4 interceptions and into all of them into double coverage. It's my fault. So anyways, that was that player's junior year. And not, I know this presentation is not about stats, but to show how powerful this can be. He went from a really good player to leading the country with 84 total touchdowns his senior year. And I attribute a lot of that to him, A, being a great player, but B, we followed this NAAFD TD process. So I'll just share with you how it works and what it is. It's a play call and decision-making criteria. And I start off here by just mentioning that there are many great offenses. Become an expert in yours. So in this day and age of learning, I oftentimes ask myself, if I'd have known at the end of my career what I knew at the beginning of my career, I'd have avoided a lot more defeats. So coaching it's like anything else. It takes on-the-job training. I learned the most myself from my failures in evaluating why did that happen and trying to make sure that it never happened again. So one of the things that I'm a huge believer of is there's so many different schemes and ways to coach. I'm a big believer of identifying which one you want to become an expert at and then become an expert at it, because there are lots of them out there. And then I say the same thing defensively. And I was fortunate to have been both an offensive and defensive coordinator. And when I train young coaches defensively, I tell them, hey, first of all, let's find a system that you can become the expert at. And then let's learn how to run that system against every offense you're going to see in your league and in your conference. So you'll know, and let's do that in the off season. That's how we're going to train ourselves to have the answer, because coaching football ultimately is about being able to adjust to things that happen in the game and the spur of the moment and having an answer for it. So similar to training quarterbacks, bullet point 2 is, what system do you use to call plays? Okay, there are a lot of different systems. And again, I use the term a lot, simplify the complex. And that's what this NAAFD TD was designed to attempt to do. And it was a system that I was good with. Do you teach this system to little typo there? Do you teach the system to your players so they understand the play call? I was a big believer of that. Everyone in our program, all the way from the center to the left tackle to the quarterback to the running back to the receivers, all knew that we were going to follow this play call criteria. Obviously, it's more important for the quarterback because at the end of the day, the left tackle's job's not to understand how to read cover 2 and who to throw to against shallow. His job is to how to read the front and make sure our quarterback doesn't get sacked. But they like this system, and they certainly like it when it comes to run game. So I want to make sure everybody understands it. And I jokingly put there, I'll teach the parents, the principal, and the superintendent this, because if I violate it, it's my fault, i.e. throwing into double coverage for my previous example. So the NAA FDTD system also will improve quarterback decision-making, and that's the whole goal. You won't find an elite quarterback who's not an elite decision maker. So if that's the case, we got to find a system and make sure that we're fostering and improving their ability to make great decisions. With that decision making, it's going to allow them to see and process information, which I call cognitive speed, and we're going to develop that cognitive speed. As I mentioned just a minute ago, can we train QBs to think faster? I'm an adamant believer that's the answer to that question is yes. I will challenge you. I work with a lot of quarterbacks, and one of the first things I'll ask them is, hey, pre-snap, what do you look at? And I've asked this at all levels, and the answers are oftentimes all different. But I'm unfortunately surprised that a lot of quarterbacks do not have a system that they use. So if anything else, I'll challenge you, because I had to challenge myself after 4 interceptions to come up with a system that was easy for my quarterback to understand, to make sure that he never threw 4 interceptions in a game again. So that's the motivation for this system. Obviously, the second to last bullet point is get in the right play call. That's what we're trying to do as play callers. We're trying to make sure our quarterback understands that, and it's going to improve, obviously, our success rate. So that all being said, what does NAA FDTD mean? All right, here it is. So the N stands for numbers, and numbers is simply going to be numbers in the box and numbers in coverage. The A stands for angles. These are going to be advantages or leverage. So I like to train our kids is when the defense lines up, both the first level defenders, the second level defenders, and third level defenders, is there an angle advantage for us based upon how they lined up and our formation? And especially at the lower the level you get, the more frequently you create angles advantage. You can also create them with formations, making sure that defenses are required to cover the variety. I call them a Rolodex of formations. Something as simple as a 2x2 stack formation. Well, I got news for you. The corner or the flat defender are going to have to make a decision, and that's safety. Those triangle of 3 people are going to have to decide how they want to defend a stacked set. So, and then green grass, obviously. If we see green grass, and this isn't a play calling presentation, but if we see green grass, we better know how to attack it and attack it quickly. The second A stands for athletes. In simple terms, great offensive play calling is really the ability to put our best athletes versus their worst. I like to use this example. If we could be in practice and we're just doing simple one-on-one drills with quarterbacks, receivers, and the defensive backs, and I could put my best receiver against the worst corner on the field, what would happen to the success rate of that drill? So as a play caller, I got to do that. I want to do that. So when and then there's a lot of ways to do it, but we got to get our best versus their worst. The FD stands for first downs. As an offensive play caller, I put first downs in front of touchdowns because first downs give us 4 more downs. And then lastly, the TD stands for touchdowns. The goal, obviously, for offensive football teams is to score touchdowns. And then the goal, obviously, as the offensive coordinator is to move the ball and score touchdowns. So I put down here at the very bottom, helmet on helmet, athlete with ball in the space. I view spread offense as not so much a formation. I view spread offenses as utilizing the field, the dimensions, formations, and space to be able to get into great play calls following this numbers, angles, athletes, first downs, and touchdowns play call criteria. And this is how I train quarterbacks. Okay, I start with all players, just explaining the history and of defenses and numbers in the box. And I start by just saying, hey, the old school football that I grew up playing, everybody was in a 2-back set, 21 personnel, attached tight end, 2 running backs, an X and a Z receiver. And in a 2-back set, defenses were trying to get 8 in the box. And you were almost always, I grew up in the era where everybody played a 5-3 cover 3 or a 4-4 cover 3. And that was the base defense that we saw in the 80s when I played football. So I share with kids, and when we did that, we'd say, hey, let's go ahead and count the number of blockers we have. We have 5 offensive linemen, that's 5. We're going to add a tight end, that's 6. And if we use the fullback in blocking, that's 7. And if we hand the ball off to the halfback, that's going to be 8. Or there's going to be 7 blockers with the ball carrier. And then I share with them that the quarterback, it was hands off and the quarterback never ran the football. Obviously, fast forward to today, and everybody's using their quarterback as a running weapon, and mostly because of a numerical advantage. So anyways, the old theory was in a 2-back tight end set, you were likely to get 8 defenders in the box. And then how are our 8 going to block those 7? And mathematically, it's impossible. Now, we've got ways that, as y'all know, that we're 2-back guys. I was early in my career, and the 2-back is still good to this day, but you're going to have to find a way to not block one of those 8 defenders in the box. And then I put 9 versus 7 because the 4-2-5 defense, the pioneer of that was Gary Patterson. Coach Patterson was an early pioneer of the 4-2-5 defense. I was stumbled in and was lucky enough to coach his two boys and learn the 4-2-5 from him. He was the defensive back coach at Utah State University back in the 90s, and that's where I coached. So I was lucky to learn that great scheme from him. And in my opinion, it's the best scheme versus a 2-back because now it's 9 versus 7, meaning the free safety is a lateral player lined up over the guard that's a box player. But I'll move on because this presentation is not about that. But I will say this: if you only got 7 blockers, you got to block 9 guys. Good luck. 2-back teams that could beat us when we ran the 4-2-5. I shook the coach's hand after the game and said, "Great job, coach," because they just whipped us, and their 9 were better than our 7. It's hard to beat. Okay, so I start by just giving them a little numerical thing. As I mentioned before, there's only 11 guys on D, so I like to use our cognitive speed processing by understanding some simple basic things. So I'd simply ask the quarterbacks, in a 3 wide receiver set, the defense must commit a minimum of at least how many defenders? And of course, the quarterbacks are able to answer that question. Well, they have to have at least 3 guys cover those 3 defenders. In a 4 wide receiver set, they obviously have to have 4. In a 5, they obviously have to have 5. So that gets them thinking, okay, if we send 3 out, they got to have 3, 4, and 5. On the converse side, how many defenders can be in the box in a 4 wide receiver set? Well, if they have to commit 4 defenders to the 4 receivers, well, that leaves 7. If we have a 5 receiver set, then that would leave 6. If we have a 3 receiver set, that would leave 8. And I didn't have that on there, but I get them thinking. Okay, we sent 4 out. 11 minus 4 is 7. Okay, they 7. 11 minus 5 is 6 in playing defense, defending the pass. Simple math, simple math, which is going to help them think faster. So here is the first process. Okay, QB information gathering. Very first question I ask: what does the quarterback do pre-snap? QBs, what do you look at? I call it bullet point number 1 is take a pre-snap picture. Get up there and take a pre-snap picture. So obviously, what are the components of the pre-snap picture? Well, component number 1 is look high. So all quarterbacks should come out, set, we're going to look high. What are we looking for? We're looking at how many safeties are high. After we identify how many safeties are high, we're going to look low. What does low mean? Low means how many defenders are in the box. So we've looked high, we've looked low, then we're next going to look outside. We're looking outside at the cornerback and the flat defender. And what are we looking at? We're looking at their depth, we're looking at their leverage, and we're looking at their eyes. And their depth, leverage, and eyes are going to give us clues as to what coverage they're in. Looking high and low is going to give us not even clues. It's going to tell us how many are in the box and how many are high. So that's the pre-snap picture. high, low, and outside. It's that simple. And it takes one session working with the quarterback for him to master that. And I'll say it all. I don't even have to say it all the time, but it's simply, hey, pre-snap picture, high, low, outside. Stevie, what's your pre-snap picture? Coach, I'm going to look high, low, and outside. Okay. And that's the information gathering process. So going back to our initial question, can we teach kids to think faster? Well, they may not think faster, but by giving them that pre-snap information, they're going to have accurate information that whether they can think faster or not, they're going to make better decisions, and they are going to think faster because they now have information to think about. So that's powerful, powerful stuff. Okay, then what are we going to do? We're going to apply the NAAFD TD criteria, which I will go over in the next slides. Post-snap, what happens when the ball is snapped? Well, there's going to be a post-snap confirmation of the pre-snap picture, meaning it stayed the same. In the old, well, I won't say in the olden days, but in the not too distant past, my experience, especially at the lower levels, you oftentimes got the same. It was the same. So what you saw is what you got. That made a tremendous advantage to the offense. Obviously, as the game evolves and becomes more complex, or we as coaches get smarter, defensive coaches quickly realize that if I just show them the picture and it stays the same, they're going to get into a good call. So they started disguising. And in this day, and that's what we're dealing with now, which is okay. So post-snap, if there's a new picture, that's okay. And this presentation is not about post-snap cognitive speed. I have one on that, but this isn't it. But we're gonna know that it's different. We're gonna basically take a new post-snap picture, and then triggers us into our post-snap cognitive speed, which maybe at a later date we'll talk about. But okay, let me move on here. So numbers. Now this is single back stuff. Numbers in the box and a single back format or formation. Excuse me. So again, I just pictorially like to draw this up, and I can go ahead and take a look here. And if I take a look at this box, I quickly see that there's 5 in the box. And if there are 5 in the box, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, if I give the ball to the F back, I have 5 offensive linemen. 5 versus 5, 5v5, 5 helmets with the single back with the ball in his hand. I like that a lot. Okay, so that goes back to my helmet on helmet criteria with an athlete with the ball in his hands. And in this instance, space is the interior space. We have helmet on helmet, good athlete with the ball in space. Love it. QB run game. Here's where it came. All of a sudden, if I take that single back and allow him to be a blocker, now I have 6-on-5 with the QB running the ball. It doesn't get any better. Does not get any better. So our quarterbacks know if I get a pre-snap picture of 5 in the box, it's going to equal a run almost 100% of the time. The only exception might be the Hail Mary end of the game, end of the half call. It might be 3rd and 15. I'll run the ball. Okay, especially if we're close to midfield where you're in a probable 4-down territory, a 4th down, go for it territory. So almost always, if we get 5 in the box, we're going to run the football. So 5 for us in the numbers criteria equals run the football. Giving them just a pictorial picture to help them learn better. And don't confuse the zebra there as a guy in the box. It looks a little bit like that. The referee there kind of over the center. But go ahead and take a look here so we can see the progression. And the beauty of looking high and low, it's in the same a picture of the QB looking. That one's easy. Now looking outside, you're obviously going to have to look to the right and then look to the left. But as we take a look at this picture, we see 1 high. When we take a look low, we see a 5-man box. And then as we take a look outside, we can see corners, off coverage, the boundary corner, inside eyes, field corner, inside eyes, flat defender to the field, a little bit outside shade of number 2. And then the defender to the boundary looks pre-snap as he's going to be an insert flat defender to the boundary. Now, we don't know that for sure, but that's why we're taking a picture. To me, if I were to ask a quarterback what coverage does that look like, it looks like cover 3. Pretty clear picture of cover 3 with boundary rotation of that safety inserting as the flat or hook to curl defender. Excuse me, I made a mistake there. You got a press coverage with the boundary player here, but my guess would again be cover 3 with insert to the hook to curl from that defender. So anyways, good example of that picture. Here it is out of a 30 front. I like to show it to them out of a 30 front and a 40 front. And for whatever reason, especially linemen and running backs and run game, you show them a 30 front and suddenly everything gets confusing for them. I try to share with them, forget about the front. Let's identify how many guys are in the box. So again, why I teach this to everybody, our O linemen are going to see them. They're going to look too. Hey, this is a 5-man box. The quiz for them should be, O lineman, what play call do you expect versus a 5-man box? And they should all be able to answer a run play, either to the single back helmet on helmet or to the quarterback, which is a +1 call for us. So that's a really, really, really good picture of a 5-man box. If we take a look at high now, we see 2 high. If we take a look low, we see 5 men in the box. And now we take a look outside and we have press coverage, corners pressed, and then the defenders over the number 2 receiver. You see inside leverage to the boundary. Guy, it could be a blitzer there. And to the field side, you see off inside coverage with inside hips and inside eyes. And I'm going to talk more about that in future slides here. But again, most importantly, this picture shows the high-low outside process and NAAFD-TD saying this is a 5-man box. We are going to make a run call. Okay, 6 in the box. So what is 6 in the box going to be? Numbers with the single back formation, 6 in the box. And as you can see, the bullet point there says 6 in the box is going to equal run or pass. We're going to check angles. I didn't put this here. I should note that for us, what defines the box? I will define the box as outside of the widest man, whether it's a tackle or an attached tight end. We will go 3 yards width each side from the widest man. In this picture, it's the tackle. So 3 yards of width from the tackle by 7 to 8 yards of depth. 7 to 8 of depth. And I like to tell my receivers and running backs, the 5 eligible receivers, I create this question day 1. If we give you guys 8 yards of space, are you okay with us not blocking those defenders? And if they answer no, we say we got to change positions. And I usually start with 10, and I tell them that the All-American and all-conference players only need 8. I can define it as 10, but are y'all okay with 8, 7 or 8? I actually should probably say 8, 3 by 8. And all of them are okay with that. And that's our old speed and space drill. If your eligible receivers cannot beat a guy with 8 yards space, again, you're going to have a hard time winning games. So that's our box defined by 3 by 8, 3 by 7, or 3 by 8. So again, six in the box now is going to equal run or pass. We're going to check angles. So as you can see, green, bottom left-hand corner. If we give the ball to the F back, we have 5 blockers versus there's 6 defenders. Now, first glance, that's not good numerically. So we would say we don't want to run 5 versus 6. But we graduate to saying, okay, guess what? The zone read concept, the option concept, and potentially GT, because our quarterback can take care of that away side C-gap defender. All of a sudden, we can get to helmet on helmet with those run plays. So if we just run, if we were to run a straight dive play into a 6-man box, bad run play. Violates that NAA criteria. But if we run zone read, speed option, or counter, we've balanced this up to helmet on helmet. So those can be good run plays against the 6-man box to the single back. Now, QB run game, we're helmet on helmet. Really, really good. So our QB knows if I get a 6-man box, okay, and I've got an angle advantage somewhere, i.e. an inside shade. I was in high school, my quarterbacks were always good runners. I wanted them to be. I was a big QB ISO game. Our QBs loved it. We'd widen splits. We'd run it at the inside shade of the guard. We'd send the center to the away side inside backer. We would kick out a 6 technique, a great angle. We would down block the inside shade 2-eye technique, great angle. We would lead with our single back on the play side inside backer, great angle, and it was our best run play. So just giving you an example of a run play for QB 6v6. And then in blue here, pass concepts. You can run all of your pass concepts here. And then we would take a look at angles, angle advantages, and or numbers advantage. So if you look to the 3 receiver side here, I would call that 3 versus 2.5. The free safety is +8. So a really simple play call, just talking out loud, that our quarterback would know. He would know that we could just run simple bubble screen to the Y. If we want to make it even better to hold the Mike backer and maybe freeze the Sam backer, we could run it off of play action, zone play action, and then spit it out to number 3. So my point is that's 3 on 2.5. Get an athlete the ball in space. Our quarterback can make that call on his own if he wants to. And I'm not going to get this presentation is not about how to make the play call per se. There's a lot of ways to do it, but I gave our quarterbacks autonomy to do that if they followed the NAA FDTD criteria. So 6 in the box for us is going to be both run and pass can be good. We're going to check angles and or athletes as well. But this one, is there green grass? Is there a 3 plus 2.5 advantage? Is there a 3 on 2 advantage? Our teams went fast, so we frequently would line up quickly and just run a quick bubble or a now screen or something, because the defense, we gained an angle advantage by formation or by tempo. So all really good stuff. Okay, here's a pictorial representation of that. Let's check high. We got 2 high, check low. We've got a 6-man box, check outside. High, low, and outside. 6-man box again equals run or pass, check angles and athletes. Simple as that. Check angles and athletes. Then run your stuff. What's your best run game versus a 6-man box? Run it. What's your QB? Best QB run game versus a 6-man box? Run it. What's your best 3-by-1 quick game? Run it. Okay. And as I see here, if you look again to the field here, we have a 3. I would call that a 3-by-2 advantage to the trip side. Run it. Run a quick post arrow. Run, again, not to get into playbook stuff, but get in good play calls, either you calling them or giving your quarterback the autonomy versus whatever system you're using, hand signal, verbal, wristband, whatever it may be, check system, lots of systems to do it, but take advantage of the angle advantage that you created based upon the formation and your high, low, and outside read. There it is. There's another one, 6-man in the box. Check high, we have 1 high. The previous slide was 2 high. How many low? 6 in the box. What does it look like outside? So again, to me, your quarterbacks are going to be trained. They're going to have seen so many of these pictures, and especially when you narrow it down to your opponents and your quarterbacks watching film of, hey, what are their 1 high coverages? Well, their 1 high coverages are typically cover 1 or cover 3. Do they disguise pre-snap, post-snap, or don't they? What clues do they give? What are the cover 3? What clues are different cover 3 versus cover 1? And I can tell you your quarterback's going to see that, and he's going to develop an ability to think quickly. And then you're going to marry your scheme that attacks the weakness of their scheme and the personnel of their scheme, and now we're in business. So again, 6 in the box is going to equal check either run or pass can be good, check angles and athletes on that. Okay, numbers in a single back formation. Now what happens when we get 7 in the box? I gave you, let me just check, make sure I didn't slip a guide. Okay, yeah, there was 6 in the box. Okay, there's your 7 in the box. And 7 in the box is obviously 0 high. And the 7 in the box is the easiest of them all to see. So bottom left-hand corner of the slide, run. If we run our F back into a 7-man box, we are asking 5 blockers to block 7 defenders. That is not good. I've put negligence there. That's when I tell our players, I used to tell our players, tell your parents and anybody else, if I don't follow the play call criteria and I run you into a headache like that, it is negligence on my behalf. I should fire myself, or the superintendent should be mad at me. Okay, that play is not going to work. Now, if we're running out the clock and we need to run a play to burn time, I mean, there are some rare examples when you may do that, but on a 1st and 10 or any reasonable down distance, we're not going to do that. It should never happen. Okay, and if we run our QB at 6 versus 7, we're running him into a headache. I grew up in the air right on that fringe time in the early 2000s when people were hesitant to run their quarterbacks. And I used to get it all the time. People used to say, are you nervous about getting your quarterback hurt? They're so important to the success of winning. And I used to say, well, I'm never going to run them into a headache. I'm just putting them in scenarios where we're helmet on helmet. And what I like about running the quarterback is that your numerical advantage becomes it's hard. Those of you who've been defensive coordinators, it's harder to stop a running quarterback than a non-running quarterback. So we want to use that to our advantage. So anyways, in 7 in the box for me, I just called it blitz menu. Our quarterbacks knew that if we get 7 in the box, we're going to be in blitz menu. And what does that mean? That means we're going to be in our quick game. We're going to be in our screen game. We're going to check athlete and angle advantages. So if you show me 0 high and I've got a soft corner, I'm going to run quick game at him. Can be quick slant, quick hitch, quick out, quick in. I don't care what it is. And we're going to rock step and throw. We've made up our decision. Our blitz menu told us what to do before the ball was snapped. Barring some rare, drastic post-snap movement, we are not going to violate. We said we like this matchup. I've got a hard press corner in press coverage. My X receivers, my best vertical runner. Run the vertical. Run the vertical and live with it. And I used to tell our quarterbacks all the time, I can handle 2nd and 8. I cannot handle 2nd and 18. Let's stay out of those situations that are detrimental. If you rock step and throw, you've picked your matchup based upon the athletic matchup you like. You've picked the angle advantage because we got a soft or we had an inside shade guy or whatever that angle advantage could be. Rock step throw, get that ball out of your hands and we'll live with it. And more often than not, as you know, the risk reward in playing 0 coverage is if they don't get to you and your guy catches it, oftentimes, you break 1 tackle and it's a touchdown. So I was adamant. I tell our quarterbacks all the time, you don't need an O-line in blitz menu. Don't need one. This is one-on-one man coverage. We do it in practice all the time. Pick it, make that process, that information before, and then let it rip. And if somebody tries to disguise out of man coverage, big deal. Where are they gonna fly to? I mean, they're at the line, at or near the line of scrimmage. So we're at a tremendous advantage by just picking that athlete matchup, getting the ball out of our hand, and living with those results. So there's the pictorial picture of the 7 in the box blitz menu, and I highlighted here in yellow, no negative plays. No negative plays. I'll not talk you through it, but if I was coaching a kid, I'd say, okay, Luke, give me your read. He'd go 0 high coach, 7 low, man press outside. That's his pre-snap picture. That's the information he's gathered and processed pre-snap. And then also situationalist presentation is not about it, but when you get inside the 5-yard line, guess what? You're going to get 0 coverage, and teaching quarterbacks time to see it. But anybody could see that this is not hard to teach when you have this systematic approach. So that's 0 coverage. We're going to go blitz menu. We're going to run our quick game with a matchup. We're going to run screen. Occasionally, the one run play we'll run if you've got a quarterback that's an athletic quarterback, you can run speed option is the one run play. You can misdirection. Obviously, you can possibly. I leave it to that. I was only a speed option guy. Is the only play I would run in our blitz menu run package, and that was with an athletic quarterback. So there's 7 in the box. Numbers versus the empty formation. Okay, so empty, subtract 1. And my mug shot's up there. I'll move it to the bottom right-hand corner. But in empty, just subtract 1. So single back, and what I mean by subtract 1, instead of 5 equaling run, 4 equals run. So just trying to decipher between the two. 4 is going to equal run. QB is 5 versus 4. We have 5 blockers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 4 defenders. Tremendous advantage. Run the football. Now you're going to say, even some of my less athletic quarterbacks, they were trained to run it, not as much. If you have an athletic guy, obviously 5 versus 4, it doesn't get any better. Now there aren't a ton of run plays, but the run plays there are is QB dive. You can run QB draw. You can run, you can, I don't know, however you want to term it, you can wrap or pull some guys and gain some advantages. But I was a big QB dive guy, just simply saying we're going to double the zero depending on their front, but we're going to, in this instance, we'd probably double the zero and lead the wayside guard to the Mike backer, kick out the 6 techniques because we have a tremendous advantage, and then have the QB run downhill and then cut, trying to hold that Mike backer, or maybe even cut step just for 1 second to try to get an even better angle with the wayside guard and the Mike backer. But that's a more philosophical conversation. But the bottom line is if we have 5 blockers versus their 4, we got to do it. So there's a 3-by-2 empty formation, 4 in the box pitcher with QB run. And I had a hard time. I'm not coaching anymore, so I had a hard time finding one. I didn't have access to a reel of film that I had when I was running my film stuff. So, but QB run, there it is. Y'all get the point. Okay, what is 5 in the box? Again, it's just -1 in a single back set. 6 would equal run or pass. In a single back set, 5 is in the box is going to equal run or pass. We're going to check again angles and athletes. So if we want to run our QB, we are helmet on helmet. Not a bad idea. I was a big wide split guy with their own linemen because they could move. And, that varies. There's different ways to coach that. And then pass game, all of our concepts, drop back, quick game, bubble stuff. If we're 3-on-2, 3-on-2.5, take it. I was a big believer of taking what the defense gives you. My whole deal with quarterbacks was, hey, think like a defensive coordinator. Your job is to think like a defensive coordinator. And then our job is to follow the play call criteria. And our job is to take advantage of misalignment, angle advantages, athlete advantages, and wear it out. Keep doing it. Do it over and over and over and over. So anyways, we're going to run our pass. There's a pictorial example of that. We're going to check high. We're going to check low. We're going to check outside. There it is out of an empty set. 5 in the box, like we said, is run or pass, check angles and athletes. And then 6 in the box is going to be blitz menu. Just like 7 in the box was in a single back set. Really, really easy to see. No negative plays. QB run is in red. Don't run into a headache. 5 versus 6. Don't like it. As you can see, something I've learned in my experience in trying to teach kids, their attention spans aren't very long. And you can see I try to color coordinate to some extent, change colors. Just it makes it, a more pleasant or engaging, keeps their attention span better and allows them to process the information. Then when you can color code it and red is obviously danger, blue would be air, pass, etc., so on and so forth. But there's again, blitz menu, quick game, screen game, check athlete advantages, athletic advantages. Nothing agitates me worse than seeing zero coverage in a quarterback in some type of 5-step drop or drop back pass game. Well, when they outnumber you don't have time for that. Now there's a time for a special adjustment that I'd used in my career. A team that would kind of give it away and you wanted to get a little more time. I would actually get into what I would call rifle and get the quarterback 7 yards deep to buy him just a little more time to allow something to develop more downfield, knowing that they were in straight man coverage. And defenders are also trained defensively, thinking like a D coordinator. If we're going to outnumber them with pressure, your quarterbacks are trained to get the ball out of their hand quickly. So you want to have an answer to take advantage of that sometimes. But another way that I would do it is simply motion your F back into the backfield. And now you're 6-on-6 protection, because most defenses aren't built to say, okay, that in this instance, the nickel's on the F. If he motions back into the backfield, that's going to trigger you blitzing. That ain't going to happen. but by motioning back into the backfield with the F-back, now we're in 6-man protection against 6 dudes coming. So we can run drop back out of that. So a way to have a great answer versus a team that gives you heavy zero or a tendency of that as a way for your quarterbacks and you as a play caller to take advantage of that. And there's an example. So pretty easy to see. And I give this example because it's not as clear of a picture, but if you take a look at that's really soft and off man coverage, that's okay. He's a rusher likely coming, and he's in man versus number 3 to the boundary. And then we got man press to the field. But why we knew this was zero is, again, how many high? 0. How many low? Your quarterback's going to see that's 6 in the box. So going back to quick game, a couple of things that for me are really easy to see from a QB cognitive processing standpoint. Number 1, let's get in a blitz menu call. Number 2, it would always be a good call if you like either of these matchups to run a vertical. Okay, and if we don't complete it, so be it. We'll take 2nd and 10. It would always be a good call with the 2 field receivers to run some type of rub concept. Really, really good. Always be a good call up here in any type of quick game. And as we know, we're going to run, we can run potentially quick post arrow, stick route, stick with the shallow, whatever it may be. But the angle advantage is right here. Those 2 guys are way too off and way too soft. The athlete advantage is down to the bottom of the screen. So anyways, you get the point. Get into a good play call. Post-snap, and it's not about this discussion is not post-snap, but post-snap, if all 6 come, it's really easy. Rock, step, throw to the predetermined thought process you had. If they drop, that's okay. We're going to have a post-snap cognitive process that's going to keep us in that same call and or get us into a new one, knowing that we don't have to get the ball out of our hand immediately. So again, 6 in the box equals pass and blitz menu. Okay, let's take a little look at the angles aspect of this. And angles will mean simply this: attack the weakness of the defensive scheme, alignment or misaligned players, identify angles of the D-line, linebackers, and DBs. And then you can see the defensive line techniques. Teach your quarterbacks that. They need to know that. And it's the old, 2I, 2, 3, 4I, 4, 5, 7, 6, and 9, and then the same thing the other way. I actually used to use from the center, I used to just use 0, plus, and minus, and I like to use 1, 2, 2 head, or excuse me, not the center. 1, 2 head up, 3 outside shade on the guard, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 inside, 5 head up, 6 outside shade, 7, 8, 9. Another way to do it, the more common way, at least the collegiate and the pro level, is your 2I, 4I, so on and so forth. But choose whatever method you like. But it's important to teach your quarterbacks and obviously your offensive linemen those defensive line techniques. With linebackers, we're trying to check depth of the linebacker, their width, their stance, their eyes, their alignment over the receivers. Is a safety capped, meaning they're likely to blitz? Do they show not capped, gap integrity, etc.? So those are angle things to teach pre-snap picture for your quarterbacks. Okay, angles. Secondary, we're going to check the secondary's alignment and angles. We're going to check their depth. I used to have a rule for the corners. If the corners are +5 non-squat, we call that soft. That's a soft corner. We like quick game against soft corners, and that was the criteria. If they were less than 5 or post-snap 5, we would call those hard corners. We're not going to throw a quick hitch into a hard corner. We're going to run by the hard corner. So that was just a softer hard corner. Shade, they're going to be inside head up or outside leverage. Feet, are their feet staggered? Are they flat? Is their front foot up? Is their right foot up? Is their left foot up? What does that look like? Are they slow pedal guys, medium pedal, fast pedal, squat, press to bail, all those techniques? And kids like this, quarterbacks like it, receivers like it when you train them. So when they're studying film, they like studying film more because they're active and engaged when they're doing that. And then their hips, are they zone turn hips, man hips, or squat hips? And then I teach the 7-yard rule with the ball in the air. The original old school 7-yard cushion was based upon a belief that a defender could cover 7 yards while the ball was in the air. That's obviously not an exact science, meaning that arm strength, length of throw factors that, but that was the old cushion rule. And I just like to say, in any zone coverage, we want to make sure that we our spacing is 7 yards. So one defender can't cover two. So that's my 7-yard ball in the air rule and spacing rule when we're running routes. Okay, athletes advantage. As I said before, we want to put our best athletes against their worst. So we're going to use formations, motion, shifts, positions. I was a big believer of teaching the 5 eligible receivers, all 5 positions. It's easy to do if you align your way that you call formations up properly, tempos to match your best athletes versus their worst. Use the physical strengths of your players in matchups. Use height, speed, strength, and route mastery. In other words, let your players do what they do best. It's irritating for me to see if you want to run a back shoulder jump ball fade, throw that to your guy that's the best at that. If you want to run a vertical, throw it to your guy, your best vertical runner. If you want to, run your mesh or your shallow concepts or whatever those are, your bubble stuff, put it in the guys' hands that are the best suited. Their strengths are the best in doing that. And I think that's very, very valuable to do it that way. First downs, attack the weakness of the defense. Decision should follow the NAA criteria. A first down gets you 4 more downs, so that's the critical thing. No sacks. If your quarterback sees the high, low, and outside, and then the number of rushers, which is actually part of the post-snap criteria, they should know what the defense is in coverage-wise, how many are in coverage, what coverage they're in, and how many are rushing, preventing any negative plays or turnovers. That's a huge deal. I tell our quarterbacks, and we went one season, I think it wasn't until week 11 that we had the first sack against us. And if your quarterback's using the decision-making process, gathering this information, responding appropriately post-snap, we should be able to accomplish that. And then, again, touchdowns, that's the goal of offensive football. Reading coverages, your pre-snap picture to get the pre-snap thought. Here's how I train it. 0 high equals man. And this is just the base, but it's about 90%, holds true 90% of the time. 0 high equals man. 1 high equals cover 1 or cover 3 and variations off of those coverages. 2 high equals cover 2, 4, 6, or 2 man. 3 high equals drop 8. And there are a couple of drop 8 coverages, but that's it. So when we look high, 0, that's what they're trained to do. Then you marry that information gathering with the opponent that you have. And as we all know, if you've game prep, teams run just a handful of coverages, especially in high school. They're going to run, 3 base coverages, 2 to 3 blitzes, and maybe an exotic and a drop 8. And then you build your game plan off of it. Okay. And of course, there are combo coverages, robber coverages, and some exotics, but those aren't the majority, but we'll have an answer for that. And then the post-snap picture confirms the pre-snap thought or creates a new picture. Here's a little prep sheet that I use with quarterbacks to help them study and think, and it's just reading defenses and coverage. And this particular example is simply a cover 3 example. So we're going to look high, low, and outside. We're going to say there was 1 safety high, 6 in the box, and then angles and it's a film prep sheet, is where were our angle advantages. We're going to get into the formation Rolodex, which is not part of this presentation, but then what are our athlete matchups? Okay, we think number 13's their lesser corner. So we want to get our best receiver as our X receiver for this or that or whatever it may be. So again, mastering how to attack coverages, how for quarterbacks, how to process information. And along with this sheet, we're going to say, okay, what are our cover 3 beaters? We like curl flat concepts. We like 4 vert concepts. We want to get into twin stack to see what their flat defender does. We want to run flood concepts. So I named just a few. So now when our quarterback is going to improve their ability to think quickly on the field because we know we're facing a cover 3 team. We know the weakness of cover 3. We know the weakness of their personnel. We know that we're going to go through our formation Rolodex to get the matchups we want to make sure they're adjusting to these formations to see if we can gain an angle advantage and so on and so forth. So that's just a brief example of part of helping helping them understand that quarterbacks and thinking quicker. Tempos, I won't go over that, but I like to use tempos as well, just to gain advantages in the NAA play call criteria. How do we communicate it? I just put it on here. And again, that's a topic for another presentation, but I was a big believer in certainly using wristbands. I was a wristband and verbal guy. I use both. We can use hand signals. You can use signs. You can use, however you want to call plays, but become an expert at it. Make sure your kids can process it, and make sure mostly it's smooth and allows kids to play fast and not basically have to think. So real quick, the benefits and improved success rate of play calls. If I call a good play based upon the weakness of your scheme and your personnel, statistical probability of my success rate should go up. It gives players an understanding of, why are we calling this play? Why did we call it? Okay. Players love systems and consistency. It helps you coach them better and expect or mandate that their mastery level should be higher because you're following a system and a criteria. Helps QBs make great decisions. I started the presentation, my guy throws 4 picks. I took it upon myself to say, that's on me. I got to fix it. Eliminate selfish wide receivers. You've all had those guys that come to the sidelines, coach, I'm open. I'm open. Throw it deep. Okay, well, the corner's 7 yards off. You're not open. You got a vertical supposed to be completed at between 36 and 39 yards. How are you going to run a 39-yard dash when the guy that's 7 yards off of you only has to run 32 yards? That would actually tell my receivers that want to go deep. I said, hey, when they become a hard corner and they scoot up, we will run by them. We're going to wait till we get an angle advantage before we do that. Cleans up the pre-snap picture for your O-line. You're not going to run into a 7-man box or boxes that they can't block. And it allows you to practice. I used to use cones, 5- and 6-man box cones, and rep the heck out of blocking GT, blocking ISO, blocking inside zone block, all of those things that makes practice efficient. And it gives, quite frankly, your quarterbacks and receivers and O-linemen confidence that you're not going to put them into a headache situation or a situation where they're at a disadvantage. Should reduce turnovers. We're not making those bad decisions. And then it should allow you to score more points. I put on here because if you're a 2-back person, it works the same. You just add 1. So instead of 5, 6, and 7 in single back, or 4, 5, and 6 and empty, if you're going to be in 2-back 21 personnel team, it's just going to be 6, 7, and 8. You're going to follow that same play call criteria. And I sped up a little bit there at the end, but that's the system to allow both you as a play caller and your quarterback to see information and process it quickly.
Thanks, Coach, so much. We appreciate your presentation to us. So, coaches, if you have questions, now is the time to hit that Q&A button right at the bottom of your screen here. Coach Spinks had to log off early. He just said, thanks, guys, got to run. So, Coach Spinks, we thank you for being with us. A lot of good information, Coach. I think you informationed us out. So, Coach Merton, yes, it will be available on the drive later this week. You can catch it again. All right. Coach Godfrey says, how do you determine if invert players are part of the box or secondary? Excellent question. So that goes back to the 3x8 box. And what's happening now is these D coordinators have caught up to this. So you're usually going to get some post-snap movement. The real benefit of that is, and I'll go back to sharing with your 5 eligible receivers or guys that can carry the ball, letting them know, hey, if we give you 8 yards of space, you okay with that? Because we can't block everybody. So we're okay with that. And as we know, as defensive guys, when a guy's having to invert down from 10 yards, it creates more space. So it's not, again, it's a lot of moving parts, man. And the whole deal is to increase the statistical probability of the success of the play call based upon the information you see. So I explained it like this. I started that system in 2001. And the simple question was can we get a better play calls if we take a peek first? The answer is yes. And back then they were stationary. Heck, I retired. I'm glad I don't coach anymore, but they were stationary and it was a lot easier. It's gotten harder. But that's why I came up with the post-snap processing of information, because we're going to do the same thing post-snap. And although you may not be in the perfect call because what you saw is not what you got,
you're going to have an answer to what you're going to do based upon what the post-snap look is. So if as I said before, the pre-snap picture, if it's confirmed, all systems go. If the post-snap picture is different than the pre-snap, we readjust our thought processes. So it might be, okay, well, that guy's going to have to beat that invert safety down in space, but at least he came from 10, right? Instead of 4.5. We gave ourselves an advantage there. So it builds confidence with kids. And is it again, the game's got complex, man. I wish we could revert back to, hey, make a rule. Hey, defenses, you can't disguise, but that ain't gonna happen.
Thanks for that answer, Coach. Coach Frick asks us, what are your thoughts on cadence in high school football?
Two things. The most important thing with cadence is to ensure that your team is not false starting. If you get wrapped up into cadence and it's causing your guys to false start, we got a major problem and you're hurting yourself. The second thing to me is to ensure that you have enough variety that you do not false start and you do not allow the defense to get to predict what you're going to do. The whole purpose is again not giving them a head start. So I had a number of them, but they were easy. We didn't have to go a lot on two because we had a jet joker scheme and we were an up tempo team where we just got up there and go set red to hit, and everybody knew it was a dummy count, so nobody ever moved, and that gave us enough. And then I had what was called what did I call that? An infinity call or like a freeze call. I called Alaska, where we would just hard count and nobody move, and then I could go check. So I was primarily on one because I wanted consistency of our guys, not false starting and BGO getting off the ball, and then minimizing and eliminating any false start and making sure the defense did not pick up on our cadence so they could get a head start on BGO. So those were my philosophies.
Coach Evans says, at what alignment of the outside linebacker overhangs do you consider them in the box versus outside of the box?
Outstanding. So I use the helmet on helmet criteria. That's going to be predicated upon if your inside receiver it has enough of an angle advantage to block him in the run game. You follow me? So if he's 3 yards inside, I can't ask my guy to peel him out. So instead, I'll run a bubble. Hold him with inside zone action, because if he's going to be that overhang player, most overhang players are taught to be 50% split equidistance or apex between the number one inside receiver and the tackle. So we got to have answers on what to do with that. So again, now I can run quick toss, single back toss. If I feel good about the angle my tackle has on the end, and it's going to be a quick outside play, and my number 2 receiver has a good enough angle to block that overhang player, I'll run that play. If I'm going to run a play inside the tackles and he's 3 yards inside my number 2 receiver, I should never make that call. So it's going to depend upon, but I'm going to get into twin stack. Is what I'm going to do. If you want to overhang me that way and he's your flat defender, not cover 2 squad, I'm going to piddle with you and roll dex my formation. So you're going to have to adjust to it.
That's great, Coach. All right, coaches, are there any other questions for Coach tonight? Give it just a quick second here, and if not, we'll wrap it up. All right, I think we're done for this evening. So thank you, Coach. Again, appreciate your time with us. All the coaches are saying excellent. Thank you so much. With that being said, gentlemen, we have Drive Live events tomorrow at 5 Eastern, as well as Thursday, 5 Eastern. So tomorrow, another offensive session. And then on Thursday, we have a defensive session. So go ahead and get signed up for those as well. And with that, everybody have a great night. Thanks, Coach.
Rich, thank you, my man. Thank you. The coaches, thank you.
All right. Have a great night.